Welcome to Making the Impossible Inevitable podcast. This show is for those who see progress as a calling, not just a choice. Hosted by former Navy SEAL and transformational guide Curt Cronin, each episode explores the mindset, strategies, and stories of extraordinary leaders who've turned the impossible into reality. These episodes are more than just conversations. They're a challenge to you to expand your capacity, shatter inner limitations, and lead with unshakable purpose. Together, let's make the impossible inevitable.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Impossible to Inevitable podcast. Today, I'm ecstatic to be able to share an unbelievable field with you today with my dear friend, Kyle Negrete. And Kyle and I met virtually, I think, in the pandemic. It feels like lifetimes ago and yesterday. And we dropped into a conversation, and I was working at the time on how do I get to the 100% conversation? How do I get deeper? And I was looking him up to see, his context and background, and his LinkedIn started with curiosity is a superpower. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a deep drop. And from that conversation, it expanded across a visit to Austin and then to where he now resides in Franklin, Tennessee. So I'm unbelievably excited to be able to share with you Kyle's journey of making the impossible the inevitable.
Oh, Curt, I'm so honored to be here, my brother. In fact, it was a day that I'll never forget. It was February 9th, 2023. The day where life as I knew it had changed because I had found a co-conspirator. And so I'm honored to share this sacred space with you and just ready to dive in. Let's belly flop into this thing.
Well, I'm so excited because this is one of those, I have no idea where it's going to go. You have so many stories of converting the impossible to the inevitable. Where do you feel called to start sharing your story today?
Oh, well, first I just want to say what life, the impossible things. I remember it actually came up in our first conversation, our first deep drop of you talking about impossible things becoming inevitable. And that's because you have someone that believes in you. I think that the character arc of my journey, Curt, has been that there is power in proximity. And I am a function and byproduct of the amazing people in my life that have chosen to not allow me to live an ordinary life. And so that has been the character arc of the journey. It started first very early on with a lot of my childhood being centered around my mother being sick. My mother was a fighter. She died of breast cancer when I was 12, and I'm the oldest of three. I was raised in a hyper-competitive, very loving family. And it was there where I began to experience what life was like, what love actually meant. And as I have grown, I've realized that loss is actually what gives love meaning. But in that early kind of teenage years, you talk about the dark night of my own soul, experiencing grief. I remember my mom had the privilege of going home in our living room and the home that I was raised in, and I was there when she took her last breath, and to experience death with someone that you loved the most was a really interesting, captivating, and soul-defying moment. And I realized right after she had passed away, we're just going right in here. She, as I mentioned, died in the comfort of our home on our living room sofa. And shortly after she died, I went and I grabbed a pillow off the sofa that she was on, and I went into the fetal position in the living room. And I remember just grabbing that pillow and slamming that pillow in my face. Rage, anger, confusion, sadness, but also felt like, oh, mom's no longer sick. She's no longer in pain. And I remember in that moment, and this has shaped this entire journey that I've been on, is there was in that moment of rage, there was no one who came to comfort me. And so I like to say I received a PhD in self-sufficiency at 12. we're talking 30 seconds after my mom died, this chip on my shoulder that when shit hit the fan, the only person that I could double down on, the only person that I could trust is myself. And I have spent the last 23 years trying to rip up that PhD certificate. And it has been quite the journey.
Yeah, I don't remember where I heard it first, but to be seen, heard, or understood by one other person changes everything. And I remember the first time you told me that story about feeling like you were alone and no one came to comfort you, and the for me, like the searing aloneness, almost fear, or that felt like it transcended from that moment. And then
It absolutely did.
the
Yeah,
incredible
it
desire to
absolutely
build
did.
all of your superpowers for achievement, but all of those then an armor for I'm alone.
Yeah, it was all a defense mechanism against pain and suffering. And so what I've spent a lot of my life doing is becoming everything that I wish that I had when I was at that age. And I also, I want to say this too. I really want to honor my dad because my dad was in the room and my dad was there with me. He's still my best friend. And we have been Batman and Robin since 12. And so I want to honor him because he had already, in his grief and his loss, he had to do all the admin things that no man should have to do at his age to watch the person that he loved the most. And so I say there was no one there to comfort me. It was in that moment. But I really feel I want to honor my dad too, because my dad was doing the best that he could with the tools that he had at the time that he had them. And so hopefully I can't wait to send this to my dad after this goes live, but I really want to just take a moment to honor my dad because I could not imagine being in that position and in that place and having to make the decisions that he had to do. Someone who just loved the hell out of his wife till the very end and did everything that he could to ensure that she was comfortable as she crossed over. And my dad did that and then some.
And the most important is we share the deepest experiences. They are our experiences. They aren't necessarily everyone's experience or anyone's intent. It is the experience that we had in that moment, right? I can imagine from the image you give me of this white hot moment of I've lost my mom.
Yep. It's really strong, Curt. And really what it feels like when we talk about how this has shaped the rest of my life, I have realized that we as human beings are so attracted to people who mimic that unresolved trauma, that egoic self, that shadow self, because we mistake familiarity with attraction. And for me, this is what has always heightened the stakes in relationships that I have entered, both romantically and just in friendship, because the idea is that people only want me because of what I can do for them. And I will tell you, I know how to show up for people. You yourself, you like chaos, sign me up.
Well, I lived my life, a lot of my life as a human doer. I had
Yeah.
no idea what it was to be a human being. I've shared with you when my mentor, Sensei Tom Crum, first asked me, Curt, do you meditate? I'm like, Sensei, I'm so busy, I don't have time to sit and talk to myself, because I literally believed the only value that I provided was that which I provided to others. And there was no internal value intrinsic as a human being.
Yeah, it's really true. That human doing element, right? That it was actually in the loss of losing my mom, that the narrative that I told myself is I lost all safety, I lost all security, I lost all trust, and that the only way my needs were going to be met was going to be by my own doing, by my own achieving, by my own fighting. And that the violence that I felt in my own heart, that grief, that egoic self, to say, man, not only do I feel like I can't trust anybody else. I don't want to trust anybody else because I have this incredible ability of this bias towards action. I don't know about you, but I love predictable outcomes.
Absolutely.
I love predictable outcomes, my man. And I think God has this massive sense of humor because I feel like every other day I'm getting dealt a hand that I didn't ask for. And it's been that journey of saying what is unfolding. It's this beautiful way of creation, of this death and rebirth, this cycle of what parts of my life need to die in order for something new to be reborn. And it's just been this constant rebirth cycle of understanding what in my life no longer serves me. What do I need to purge? Because I don't want to take on responsibility that's not mine. One of the things that I've been very consciously aware of is I don't want to set up a base camp on a mountain that I was never meant to summit. And I have spent a lot of my time setting up base camp in places that I that was not mine to do. And that's what I love. You've been so encouraging in my life of what is the thing that you were meant to do. And
and we just touched on high agency, which you absolutely embody. And our dear friend Matt sent us that incredible article on high agency and the three critical aspects of that: the bias to action, disagreeability, or I would call it agitability, the ability to vibrate from the status quo, and clear thinking, i.e. independent thinking, and like, hey, does this feel intuitively right? And so I love that concept because I can, when he sent us that, I can almost trace everything that I've screwed up has been giving up high agency, and all the things that have gone powerfully have been the ability to hold those three in dynamic tension.
100%. And that is the part, I hate to break it to you, but change is inevitable. Chaos is inevitable. I got good news. Change is coming. Change is coming. So how we choose to engage with the change that's inevitable says a lot about what we value. And a lot of my journey, Curt, as you know, better than probably anyone, is this idea around becoming an active participant, actively engaged in our own story and our own mission. And so often as I, in my journey of growing up, it was so much easier for me to abdicate the responsibility of showing up for myself. I always like to say, I let people, places, and things audition for the role that I was always meant to play in my life. And I was not the main character in my own story. And as we've talked about, we get one race around this flipping track. What are we doing? So that journey, and then that journey of becoming fully integrated, becoming fully engaged with my own life, Curt, with your own life, to get off the sidelines of our own stories and in the game takes a lot of guts and a lot of courage. But in that journey is through all the portals of the dark night of our own soul, to say, what is the thing that I'm meant to do? Let's go do that thing. And that's what I love is every time I'm around you, it's like you toss a shirt that's 2 sizes too big and you're like, Kyle, this is for you in this season. And you give me something to grow into. And that's where I like to say that power of proximity. When you get around people who are running or sprinting in areas where you feel like you're crawling, right? Those are the people. That's where impossible things become inevitable. Because Curt, if it's true for you, it could be true for me. If it's true for Kyle, it could be true for a listener here. And that's this beautiful journey of what it means to be in proximity to the co-conspirators.
And by the time I'd met you, you were a nuclear reactor of energy and abundance and interdependence, right? You'd made all my teens are now going from dependence. They're fighting for independence, largely that aloneness that, hey, I'm now separate from, that you talked about. Can you tell everyone here's the journey you made to interdependence? How did you cross from instantly I'm alone into now where I'm in communitas?
Yeah, well, I will say, I feel like I'm in that every single day. I had a bias towards independence first, right? So that was, call it 12. And then it was an interesting journey of having to fight and live into the codependent realm. where interdependence is obviously is obviously the sweet spot. But I found that early on, because I assumed some of the parenting responsibilities, right, in some capacity, I like to say I became for myself what I didn't have, which is a hyper independent realm and narrative that I was telling myself. I It reinforced a few narratives. The first narrative is I can only depend on myself. Second narrative is everyone's going to leave when something bad happens or when crisis comes. And third is I'm too much to handle. And so interdependence has been me re-engaging with those three narratives because I told myself if I'm enough, someone would actually desire to be on my team and stay. Come on. That's all you got? I'm thankful, Curt, that you're one of those friends. Like, that's it? Come on, right? You act as that mirror. Then I have to tell myself, if I am inherently worthy, then someone couldn't imagine life without me, right? Because we live in such a disposable world. And then lastly is if I wasn't too much, right? I'd find someone who would match my pace, would match my engagement with life. And so the interdependence realm and arc has been, rather than trying to outsource that to somebody else, it's actually becoming all three of those narratives and tackling that narrative myself in my heart, in my mind, and in my conscious first. Where I am not driven by someone's outcome or someone's movement towards me. Faith, hope, and joy is an inside job. And I spent my whole life outsourcing what I was always intended to be for myself. And I'm actually in that right now. I'm talking full send right now. Is I have realized that a lot of emotions, whether it's loneliness, whether it's desiring to have a witness, whether it's someone to simply celebrate me, whether it's someone that wants to just sit with me in the muck, but call me higher. I have found that because I have such amazing people in proximity to me, rather than going on that sacred, scary journey inward and processing my own nervous system and regulating my own nervous system, I oftentimes would just outsource it to my friends. And I got the greatest group of friends around. And the journey that I'm on right now, and what I feel like the invitation is Kyle, do not outsource this. I want you to go inward first. Once you go inward, then you could process amongst your friends, but I want you to go there first. And that is scary, my man. It feels like such liminal space because it's so much easier. I'm going through a hard thing. Wow, I have Curt to call. First call. When something good, something bad goes, Curt, I can call you. And so I'm in this space of getting really comfortable with being with myself. I want to really enjoy myself. And my life is so chaotic and it's filled with the most amazing light warriors around. But I don't want to let busyness lead to barrenness in my own soul. And I don't say that to sound cute or poetic. But I oftentimes have let busyness, end up in barrenness. And I don't want to be found that way.
No, I love it. As I experience it, just came off of a trip to Montana with my accountability group that's 15 years in the making. And it was the most impactful session that I have had in 15 years because I got more naked than I've ever done before, right? Because I realized that which I don't share, like a lot of my feelings of separateness was, oh, they love me for who they think I am, but they don't actually know who I am. And the ability to, when I hear you say, do the own work, the ability to say, hey, here's who I am, here's all my deepest, darkest fears, here's all my concerns, and then to be held in that space, all of a sudden, just speaking those fears that I've never spoken before, the instant that they're spoken, you can tell, hey, that's hogwash, right? That's ridiculous. And even as you speak the spell into existence, like you can feel its power vanish, and all of a sudden, now from a clean place, oh, we are in communitas, we are in community, because you know my flaws and I know yours. I know, the dyadic journey with my wife has been the most fascinating 23 journey. I would have never ever guessed like what it was to be a married person when we got married, because the ability to say I'm in no matter what shows up and what happens, like I'm in, and it completely has changed the dynamic of my entire life. And I realized all of my aloneness was in my creation of separateness by not being fully authentic and genuine.
It's so true. And that for me has been that shadow ego work, right? Because my ego feels like this massive vigilant guard that's trying
Hypervigilance.
to
Yes,
just
that's how I experience it. Yes.
protect me from things that are not familiar. And I have found, and I don't want to just single out men, but I have found this more in men than I have women. And this has been
We can speak from more direct experience.
yes, yes, I will speak from my experience as a man. I love the Brene Browns of the world. I love this
She's amazing.
journey. I mean, her work has really helped shape the way that I handle conflict. And when I think about vulnerability and honesty, I think we have completely missed the boat and missed the mark. What I like to say is honesty is telling the truth after the fact, and vulnerability is telling the truth on the way.
No, I love it. Time bound.
Because we as men, I think we as humans, but I would say myself as a man, I have masked vulnerability. I have called honesty vulnerability. The only reason why it felt vulnerable is because I got caught. So I was actually just telling the truth after the fact. Vulnerability is actually vulnerability isn't vulnerability unless it costs you something. And so, Curt, when you're talking about this trip that you had to Montana, that's vulnerable. You are actually giving the gift of here are my busted up parts. You're not being asked questions simply to say, here is where I'm at. But that beautiful ability to have the psychologically and emotionally safe environments to say, I am busted up. I'm coming in crispy. I'm coming in hot. Here are the things that I'm wrestling with. And I'm not going to be judged. I'm going to actually be cared for and celebrated is the most beautiful part of life. And then to also model, Curt, what I have found, I had a conversation last night, is I've realized, and this has been really hard for me, a lot of people don't want to change. A lot of people are actually really comfortable in the status quo. And so I have found a lot of folks actually don't want to change. And so I have found myself getting really frustrated in relationships, Curt, with offering advice with people who actually didn't want to change. And so I've made it a rule now. I will not speak unless spoken to in terms of advice or speaking into a situation unless I'm asked, because oftentimes people do not want to get better. And I also have found, I love storytelling. I love imagery. A lot of my life, Curt, has been spent rescuing people. That hero, savior, rescuer complex is one that I feel too comfortable in. It's a part of the identity that I'm shedding in this season. Because what would happen is, for illustration purposes, someone would be on the dock, they could hardly swim, they jump into the water. Kyle, come to the rescue. I grab them, I get them on shore, I turn my back, and then I find someone struggling in the water again, and I realize, oh, it's the same person. I get them on shore again, they get off the dock, boom. And I found myself over and over again that victim mentality, that victimhood, that lower level of living. People want to be rescued, and I find a lot of joy in being the rescuer. And I heard this in a small clip. I don't remember what, probably 6 months ago. And the person asked, "Do you know at the U.S. Coast Guard who they're taught to throw the rope to in a rescue?" They said the person swimming towards the rope, the person swimming towards the helicopter. And I was like, shoot, that's it. that my whole life has been trying to rescue people who weren't swimming towards the helicopter, that weren't, and I don't want to live that way because it's exhausting.
Well, taking on the hero, by definition, robs them of the ability to be their own hero.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the fun part. How do we now put kindling around to allow when there's a spark to be fully supported, knowing that each person is their own spark?
Yeah. So
you provided one aspect of your journey. One of the ones that's fascinating to me, is just as a physical embodiment, is, can you tell us your football story?
Oh yeah, football story was fun. Was born and raised in Fresno, California. Right, had dreams, aspirations of, playing football at the highest level. And unfortunately, a couple weeks before signing day, my senior year of high school, I was in a really terrible car accident. And it was a Friday night, and I was over at a family friend's house. I had a casual dinner. I just want to be clear, no drugs or alcohol. Mom woke me up at 11:30, said, we don't want your dad getting mad at us. It's time to get home. And long story short, doctors say that I fell asleep at the wheel on the way home. And that's where things got really, really ramped up. The extent of my injuries was expansive. There were a couple days there where I don't remember.
Well, I think it's important to share the first call that the paramedics gave.
Yeah, there might be a young teenager dead in a truck. Yeah, jaws of life to get me out. And it was a wild journey. First thing I remember is being told you might not play football again. In which my sisters tell the funny story of, do you know who the F I am? So that was a fun journey.
The story that you told the doctor.
Yeah. And so Curt, it was really, really tough. We were in a small town, and we was fairly well known in our small town. Was raised in a football family. My grandfather was the head coach at Fresno State. So my mom bear the name Sweeney, and so Sweeney was a very important name. And my grandfather helped shape the Central Valley around football. No dogs down, as they say. And I had to take on that mentality of no dogs down. And long story short, it was a really, really tough rehab. Right here I was, senior year, had all these aspirations of playing Division I football, and it was all stripped away from me. And I remember thinking, wow, I had built my whole life on this, as I talked about, this defense mechanism against pain. I had a lot of success as an 18-year-old. Like you name it, I did it. And it was all stripped away. And here I was, right, sleeping on the recliner of our living room, in our living room, having to spend my senior spring semester sleeping on a recliner. Never thought that was going to be a part of my story, Curt. But as I mentioned, really had this miraculous recovery. And I got an opportunity, when all the other things were stripped away, had an opportunity for someone to take a chance on me. And Coach Mishagian, Coach Moose, down at the University of San Diego, where you're very accustomed to, would see all the boys training in Coronado, and he took a chance and had the opportunity of going down and playing at the University of San Diego, and had a great couple years down there, but said, I want to live a meaningful life. I want to chase these dreams. This is the thing that I was meant to do. And so sit my tape around and crazy stories of miracle after miracle after miracle. And I got an opportunity to play at one of the most prestigious colleges in the United States, Southern Cal, baby, fight on. And so USC took a chance on me. Coach Baxter, another Fresno connection, and it was wild. So I grew up football, basketball, baseball, but then played football and baseball. My really towards the latter end of my high school career, and here we were. This was my shot, Curt. And so then I grew up playing strong safety, outside linebacker, and then had back surgery after my sophomore season. Which again, it's like, are you kidding me? I have this crazy life defining car accident. I have a miraculous healing. I then have to get elbow surgery after my freshman year. I then have to get back surgery after my sophomore year. And then I just doubled down on punting. And then I was the starting punter and got to play in front of 100,000 people while we're on probation because of Reggie Bush at USC, and just got to spoil everyone's season because we had nothing to play for but our egos, and just had a blast. And it was one of the most unique, awesome experiences of my life.
And then where from there? It didn't end there.
Then I went to training camp with the Bears, which was an incredible experience. So I did that, ended up getting cut. Then I studied finance and entrepreneurship at USC. And then from there, Curt, I went and worked in investment banking at Blackstone in New York City. I could tell you, any young guy from Fresno, my last thought would be I would end up working for one of the most prestigious firms in New York City, and just had a ton of fun. What I didn't know, Curt, is how much I needed a hyper competitive environment. Right? You talk about working the 90 to 100 hours a week, 4 meals a day at the desk. I mean, it was game on every single day. But I realized, Curt, fairly early on, but probably about the year and a half mark, I was surrounded by people who were just absolutely miserable with their lives. They were spending money that they hated to earn to impress people they didn't even like. They were making every excuse not to be present with their spouse and kids. And I said, this is not the life that was intended for me. And so, as we've talked about, one of the character arcs of our journeys, we've always ran towards the thing that scared us the most. At this point, I'm like, I need to be engaged. I need to do something with my life. And so the outcome of that discovery was moving to Haiti and partnering with a couple friends and adopting 12 kids. And I ended up moving to Haiti. And that's a story for a whole nother day. We didn't need a whole podcast just to share the war stories in my time in Haiti. But it really was my time in Haiti, Curt, where we talk about the need to have a space to know ourselves and to engage with ourselves in a meaningful way. My life up until that point had been so chaotic. The demands on my life were at an all-time high. Busyness was rampant. I lived by every calendar notification, and I was on the hamster wheel. And I was sent to Haiti to redeem and restore my life. And it was there. We're talking, I don't want to manipulate the conversation, but we didn't have we only had electricity when the government decided to flip the switch. I got to sleep on a roof for almost 2 years. And it was there where I got to do the real deep work. And I feel like I was too stubborn to slow down. Slowing down for me is a lost art form. So if you have a playbook for slowing down, please send it my way, because I'm still on my journey of discovery of what it means to be alone with myself.
Please, someone send it to both of us.
Please send.
But let's not miss. I mean, talk about how you ended up running an orphanage.
Yeah, it was so I had two really good friends, two brothers, actually 3 brothers. And it simply came down to what is the thing that we were meant to do. Went to a Haitian orphanage, and it was one of the most inhumane scenarios and settings that I'd ever seen. I believe there were 123 kids there. Kids hadn't eaten since Wednesday morning. We were there on a Saturday afternoon. And when we talk about impossible things becoming inevitable, it was that setting, that situation demanded that we do something different. And so we packed our truck with the kids that were in the worst shape, brought them home, found a space, created a space, and just figured it out by any means necessary. And thankfully, where we were in Haiti, we were able to stand up a staff fairly quickly. And
But why were they orphans?
they were poverty orphans. Well, many of them were. So that is, a challenge in the developing world, not only in Haiti, but around the world, that there are many parents that out of their desperation, right, out of their longings, say, I want to provide a better future, a better life for my kids. And if that means I can essentially give over my kids to be able to go to school, eat 3 meals a day, have access to water whenever they want, I'm going to do it. I'm not a parent myself yet. It's a deep desire for me, but I cannot imagine being forced into a situation to, again, have to outsource that role that parent could have played, but circumstantially could not. And impossible things had to become inevitable there. And it was inevitable for us to do the thing that we were meant to do in that moment. And I am so proud of the way that our group stewarded the beautiful lives of the kids that we were entrusted with, and the kids' lives of a village we started serving, of the schools that we were a part of. Because right now, as you know, Curt, Haiti is in utter disarray. It's pure anarchy right now. I actually don't even think you can get in on a flight. I don't think they have flights in country.
But don't bury the lead. Where did those kids end up, and how?
Yeah, those kids ended up in many places back home where they belonged.
Because
We decided to do things different, and we decided to create unconventional paths to professional wages for the kids. We partnered with a coding school, and after 14 months, we got these kids back home where they belonged. And a lot of these families have been relocated up to Cap Haitian, so they are safe. They're out of Port-au-Prince. But it was a really beautiful journey. And I like to say, Curt, it's been fun to, I've always felt like an entrepreneur, but looking back at that time there, I was like, oh, we didn't give ourselves enough credit for the things that we did. And but really, I would say selfishly, Haiti, for me, Curt, was a journey for me to discover myself in ways that the life that I was living, the life that I was running, could have never exposed. And 2 years, I wish everyone had the opportunity of going to a place, maybe not Haiti. I wouldn't recommend it, but to get alone with yourself, with your heart. What's the thing that you were intended to do? And let's go do that thing. And Haiti was monumental in terms of a redirection of becoming, again, an active participant in my own story.
One comment, one of the things I wanted the audience to be able to see, hear, and understand is, so you're born in this amazing gift of born into this incredible family. Age 12, your mother's taken from you. So quote, not enough. Get to be the football star, work, train, study, and prepare yourself. Football star, accident, nearly killed, nearly paralyzed, as I recall, like where they thought you were paralyzed. Miraculous recovery, get to be the star on a college football team in a new role, get to the NFL, like, politics, get cut from that, quote, not enough, right? So, it's fascinating from inside the frame of you share with me, hey, now I'm the star at BlackRock. It's taken from you in a way of, hey, this isn't my calling. The courage, that bias to action, saying this isn't my calling. So easy from inside, as you've told me this story, to be like, hey, not quite enough, not quite enough, not quite enough, not quite enough. From outside, I would trade any one of those in any one lifetime, and you've already had 10, right? And we've only just begun. We're not even to your current story. And I think that's the thing that causes things to be impossible for all of us, is that sense of not enough, right? That sense of always longing and lacking, which actually sends out the very energy that's not that which we want in life. And how have you overcome all of those, not just through your incredible willpower, which is a key aspect, right? You have the ability to bias to action in 3D, but what's been your journey to interdependence, to trust again, to say, oh, all of these things didn't happen as tragedies, but to rewrite the story as honings for the strongest steel in the hottest fire?
Oh, it's a great question. And it's one that it's one that I'm constantly asking myself, Curt. And it comes down to, it's always worth it. It's always been worth it. And I want to trust the unfolding. I want to trust the seasons of development of what is that thing? What is the part of my life? What am I learning about myself? Where it's the inner work. I like to say happiness is driven by externals and joy is driven by internals. Joy is an inside job. Joy takes flipping guts to say, bad diagnosis, I'm all in. Back surgery, I'm all in. Lost my mom at 12, I'm all in. Rather than remaining the victim and feeling bad about myself and making every excuse in the book. I could tell you, I could make every excuse in the book to say, oh, here are all the reasons why things didn't end up the way that they did. But when I look at my life at 35 years old, I would not change absolutely anything, because it has created substance in me. Now, I have a ton of growth edges, but I will tell you, when I show up, things happen. When I show up, because I know who I am, my broken, crazy, loud, rambunctious self. I know, though, when I show up, things have to happen, because if I could walk through all the things that I have walked through, and I could maintain a level of centeredness, maintain a level of composure, maintain a level of here I am and I'm showing up for myself, than anyone else in the world can. So I'm all in. And I'm all in on myself, and I'm all in on the people around me. And as we started this thing, I want to find the co-conspirators. I want to find those that are making impossible things inevitable in their lives, because they're choosing to go down to pioneer their own journey and to bring as many people to the party as possible. And that is where I'm at, to re-spark a revolution towards connectedness, of knowing who we are, having safe spaces, to not have all the answers, to have the guts to remain a student, to also have the guts to be a beginner at something. I'm like, I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and the speaker asked, how many people in the room want to fail? And no one in the room raised their hand except for me. Well, I'm like, one, failure is a man-made concept that we've constructed in our minds. But two, if we're not failing or taking risk, then what are we doing? And so for me, I've always said, I got to trust the unfolding. I have to trust this journey of discovery. And where are the breadcrumbs? I'm a beggar trying to find the other beggars to tell them where I found a little piece of bread. That's what life is all about. And so I have found, I've been able to find the breadcrumbs in this unfolding of my life that has been hard, that has been filled with trauma, that has been filled with grief, that has been filled with loss, but has also been filled with the most incredible life experiences, the most amazing people, the most amazing travel around the world, and building this most connected hub of the most amazing light warriors all around the world. And it's because of the way of this non-linear trajectory that I've been on. And I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah, I love how it's unfolding. You had that apex of choice at converting the impossible to the inevitable. You know that the moment probably most seminal to my pivot in that was August 6th of 2011 when Extortion 17 crashed. And I was so overwhelmed at the loss of all of these friends, brothers, and warriors infinitely greater than I. It was probably the only time in my life I was in such a deep pit. I wouldn't have gotten out myself. Right? To me, you go into, there's that kind of the pre-tragic where everything works if I do the work. There's the tragic where now all of a sudden something occurs that was beyond all comprehension, beyond all fears. In fact, like was my greatest fear in leaving the SEALs is not being there with my men. And then that occurs, and all of a sudden, without my mentor and my wife, I would not have come out of that space. And remember, Sensei told me specifically, he said, Curt, you can't make your life better, anyone else's life better by destroying your own. And that hit, and I was like, okay. But then the next is probably the one sentence that was the only one that would pull me out was, if you really want to serve the memory of those men that you consider infinitely greater than you, teach others what you learned from them. As you're sharing your story, that's where I almost got kicked out of the Naval Academy because I could not talk to the people across the table from me because I assigned no value to me. I assigned it to everyone else. I was in awe of everyone around me. We've talked about superpowers. Like, I didn't call any of my superpowers by name, therefore I didn't have any, right? Because if I couldn't own them, I couldn't use them. I couldn't serve anyone else. And so adapting to share is not from... That was not... The calling was to be able to share that which I learned from others, right? And I couldn't really serve others, and everything was impossible until I became clear that was the mission, right? It was in service. And that to me has been the spark of watching things become inevitable, is I believe we'll all do more for others than we will for ourselves, and our superpowers show up in complete service to others. And that's where all of a sudden, like, we can break through walls and do the impossible because it's in service of something greater than ourselves. And then in that coherent field, like, everyone rallies to that call, right? And that's where the community comes together. Like, okay, now we have a mission that is worthy, and we're all going to become infinitely bigger, better than ourselves, and everywhere in service to this mission. And that to me was the through line of, as you were sharing, that conversion of all of that heat, pain, and trauma into, okay, like, I accept this, and I'm now going to turn this and be an alchemist and turn it into all that darkness into light.
And that's where the magic lives. Truly. And it has me thinking, a lot of the narrative growing up, and the shadow this comes up every once in a while, is I became everything to everyone. I became everything to everyone else and no one to myself. And now this journey of knowing who I am, I like to say, when you know who you are, you could afford to give it away. And this interesting part around curiosity being the ultimate superpower. There is a shadow side to that too. And I want to just share, because this has felt very resonant to me recently, is I am typically the person in my life that goes first.
Yes.
I'm the guy who goes first. I'm the first guy off the boat. I'm the first guy to jump. I'm the first guy to reach out. I am the first, and I always go first. Uh, and that is not inherently bad. But if my entire identity is wrapped up in being the person who always goes first, there's some shadow work there, right? So I'm the one who asks the questions. I'm the one who shares the vulnerable story. I'm the one who names the thing in the room. I'm the intuitive, kinesthetic guy who knows exactly what someone needs in a moment. And oftentimes I've told myself, oh, that looks really brave. That looks really noble. And I would say, and sometimes it is, but sometimes it's strategy. And because if I go first, I set the terms. If I go first, I control the depth. If I go first, I manage what is being revealed in that moment. If I go first, I'm always one step ahead. And so the part that I'm living into right now is I don't want to treat people as a strategy. I don't want to treat and engage with someone as a problem to be fixed. But I have found that there is so much safety in being the opener and being the person who walks into a room and makes everyone feel like the most important person in the room. That's how I show up in the world. It's what happens. And it's this, call it like this quasi like emotional preemptive strike, because people love the way that we make them feel. They feel disarmed. They feel like they have permission to dream out loud. They just feel really good on the inside. And people love talking about themselves. And so I also would say is in me going first, there's no way that you could leave me hanging because I back to setting the terms because I never gave you the chance to, right? So there's cost to showing up in this way because of the way that I show up, I give you all my cards, right? There's no door to knock on because the door is already open. And it has been really hard because I have found oftentimes that I have been in this place of pick me. Like I want to carry around a deck of Uno reverse cards. I've been ruminating on this idea of, hey, just so you know, that question that I just asked, you have permission to just tee it back. And here's a little Uno reverse card for you. Like it's not hard to get curious. And I have found it's been really hard in that idea of being the initiator, being the most curious person in the room, that is someone going to have the guts and the sensitivity to knock on my door. And it's been really hard to dismantle that narrative that nobody cares about me and that nobody's curious enough and that I'm always going to be the person who loves the most. I'm always going to be the person who shows up. If I don't initiate, I won't hear from anybody. And that is a lie, because I do have friends who initiate. I do have friends that check in. I do have friends that not only knock on the door, but kick down the door in my own life. And that is where I want to allocate my time and resources to.
And that's where the vulnerability becomes so powerful. Because if you show up with a nuclear reactor of light and energy and love, then the assumption is you don't need it. And so everyone's happy to hey, bask in that energy. And the assumption is it's not needed unless you can express, hey, I need you. I've had the most challenging conversations as my life's gone increasingly chaotic, even more than normal in the last year or so. And I've had many friends that have reached out and said, like, hey, I was going to talk to you about this thing, but I thought you were busy. And I realized I completely failed because I've chosen this life. And the goal of, lots of missions is being able to discern which one is the priority. And so I realized, like, I had given off an energy that had prevented people dearest from me from knowing that I was a resource for them because they had the perception I was busy. And so I had to make sure, like, none of the priority is the humans in my life.
Yeah.
And please be a friend, and please call me, because I don't feel like a friend if I don't get the call, right? Because I wasn't the one that was there. I love that biased action, that high agency article talked about. If you're in a third world country and you get one call, like, who are you calling? Like, who's the person that's going to find the way? And I realized that was it. The perception of busyness, the perception of someone not being important enough in my life that they would be able to reach out to me, is antithetical to the entire mission. And so, crucially important to be able to create space of we're here for each other, right? We talked about, if we're going to build a group, if you're going to build a community, the community should be one where we're going to all the kids' weddings, all the funerals, right? Like, it's not that's just here's what the level of priority that it is, because that's where we're truly alive, where we're truly seen by others, and we're truly, able to see them. And that, to me, is the most exhilarating aspect of our humanity, where we can give that head nod in the helicopter, where my life and yours and mine, you have a completely different relationship.
100%. And for, I would say, to riff on this a little bit, it's really important. It's been really important for me to define what is important in my life, because in the freneticness of our days, I would say in my days, the demands on my life are at an all-time high. If I don't have clearly defined guardrails around what is important, I will let what is urgent define it for me. And I do not want to live in that way. And so I have found, when my life has felt void of meaning, my life has been filled with distraction, it was actually because I wasn't clear on what is important to me. And that is why having to go down the journey of knowing who I am and how I'm showing up in the world and what I actually want has been the key function of living in that place of constant discovery. Because I do not want to let what's urgent to define what's important. I don't want to be like, that would be the worst thing to hear. And I can't imagine how hard that was for you to hear. Look, I didn't call you because you're just too busy. I will say, I've been told the same things. I've been told that I'm impossible to get a hold of, and I'm the worst texter on the planet. Now, in that, the flip side of that is really interesting. I love the B word, boundaries. So it's this healthy, fine line. And I have found, Curt, around the boundaries piece, we'll write a book about it someday. But I have found on the boundaries piece that it's been an interesting observation that the people who have complained most about the boundaries that I have set are the people who benefited the most from me not having any. And so it has been this wild journey of saying, I am taking my life back. I'm putting guardrails, I'm putting parameters around how I engage, especially during the day when life can be really chaotic. I've given myself permission not to feel bad about not responding to someone in 10 seconds, which, again, when we talk about that hero rescuer, a part of my shadow self is just making, I've given too many people too much access to my life, and it has officially caught up to me. I have collapsed in the last month. Like, talk about needing help, talk about needs. I would say historically, Curt, I didn't know how to spell needs. Okay? I need help. I need infrastructure, I need systems, and I haven't had any. And it sucks because it has officially caught up. It has officially caught up to me, uh, and I am in it right now. But it's because I've clearly defined what's important to me. I've clearly defined how am I going to allocate my time. I'm going to be around people who are additive to my life, not the net retractors. I'm going to spend my time with people who are on mission. I want to find, because I want to accelerate and expand other people's missions. What is the thing that you were meant to do? I like to say I got some friends in low places and the right friends in high places, and let's collaborate and go win together. I've never been accused of thinking small. And so that's where, right, when we talk about present day, that's where things get really exciting, because there are a lot of things that are happening in an accelerated and expedited way because of that, the trust that's been built with key decision makers, and to bring as many people to the party as possible.
Well, that's a great bridge for what's impossible now that you're making inevitable. What's your current mission? And how can our listeners connect with you to help make that inevitable?
Oh, I'm trying to find the co-conspirators. I am. And what I mean by that, I mean people, and we'll go back to this, people who are actively, I'm talking like actively engaged in their own life. They're driven by generosity. They're driven by being present with their families. They're driven by what is the next decision that we can make that's going to make us the most generous? What is the next right thing that we can do for the people in front of us? And what feels impossible right now is I've stepped into a new realm. I have lived a life of obscurity, or at least it's felt that way. After talking about it and hearing it mirrored back to me, I'm like, well, there hasn't been a lot of obscure things that have happened in life, but it has felt like I've lived a life of obscurity. And I've now pulled the lever of not being, I have felt oftentimes like the plumber that was doing all the dirty work behind the scenes, that if you knew me, you knew me, but if you didn't know me, there was no reason to know me. Whereas now, stepping into a new realm where I am actively buying companies, have a tire company, which is fun. We don't have to really riff on that, but I didn't know anything about tires 3 months ago, and now I have a tire wholesaling company, which is really interesting. I have been building a mental health tech company called Kinship, which is now going to be called Convo. Update you later on that as well. But I'm in the process of finding and standing up a multifamily office. I'm starting to see, I have a lot of connectivity in the family office space that has accelerated over the last 6 to 8 months by really key families. And I want to be able to syndicate private equity and venture capital deals, and to find all of the most conscious capital around, all the best families, the best originators, the best underwriters, and invest in meaningful projects and help really smart owner operators, really disruptive and innovative tech, establish a really great culture and build wealth for families. And I think that there's a large white space in the market right now. I have a lot of friends that are positioned for some significant capital events in the next 12 to 18 months because they built some really great companies. And the thing that I'm most excited about is standing up a multifamily office for owner operators where most of their net worth is attached to their private companies. So they may be thousandaires in the bank, but millionaires on paper. And they assume a ton of risk, right? Because they built companies from impossible to inevitable. So they assume a lot of risk, and they want access to really great deals. And because of the trusted network that I've built over the last 12 years, I'm starting to see some of the best paper in the market with some of the top investors and thought leaders in the space. And it's going to be really fun to participate. I just want all of my friends' companies to be filled and participated in and get all my friends on the cap tables. I want all of my friends and their funds to be invested in by all of our friends and family offices and institutions. And I just want all of us to go win together. That's simply it. It's not hard, not reinventing the wheel, but there are too many people on this earth, too many people in my network, in my sphere of influence that need to know each other. So my goal is to be the glue and to be the bridge, and for everyone to become accretive to all that we're doing, define what's important, put a high demand on being generous, and all going and winning together. And that's it. It's really simple, but it is impossible if we don't find the other co-conspirators.
Well, hopefully they're listening. So it's unbelievable. Thank you for the incredible gift that you are and the gift in my life. Any parting shots for our audience today?
Well, Curt, you asked me a question about a month ago, and I'd love to the Uno reverse. It was that LinkedIn post. Someone posed the question that if the listeners were sitting in a cinema watching watching a movie of your current life, what are we getting out of our chairs, screaming at the screen for you to do right now?
For me?
For you.
I think that you have an audience full of mirrors going, hey, drop the fear. Step into, all the calling that is in front of you and show up fully and authentically.
Yeah, it's beautiful. My parting words are for all these listeners. You are enough. You are uniquely designed. You were uniquely made for this moment. This moment is not too much for you. And give yourself permission to get into the arena, to get into the game. And I have found that it's really hard to be a contender in the arena while I cling to my seat as judge. And we need less judgment and more engagement. And I am excited. Please reach out to me. I want to hear your story. I want to get really curious. You are so worth being known and cared for. And I want to know, what is the thing that you were meant to do? What is the thing in this season that feels impossible? What is the current mountain that you're summiting? That Edmund Hillary, I think it was 1958, 1968, right? Multiple failed attempts. Edmund Hillary was the first person to summit Everest. Multiple failed attempts. His last failed attempt, he looked up at Everest and said, "I can and I will. The only person who can get better in this equation is me. I'll be back, and I can and I will." And then that next time he summited Everest and created a pathway. I want to know, in the light of Edmund Hillary, what are the things in your life what mountains are you looking to? What impossible task, what impossible thing are you looking to that you could shout today, "I can and I will"? So thank you, Curt. It's been an honor, my man.
Thank you.
Most people don't realize they're wearing a mask, which hides their true power without even knowing it. But the people you work with, your friends, your family, and the world need you to step into the power of your authentic self. Take our free mask assessment to uncover which of the 15 masks you are unconsciously wearing that shapes your life and how you can start to break free. Start your journey at akeypartners.com and step into the power of your authentic self.